On this episode,
They had a lot of hits.
Yeah.
They had huge hits in America, and then America wiped the hands of them after about...
There's a Kind of Hush. Mrs. Brown,
Brown.
You've Got a Lovely Daughter.
Henry VIII.
Henry VIII.
Can't Hear My Heartbeat. Dandy. I'm Into Something Good.
from the coveted corner booth in a little bar at the center of the Coachella Valley universe, welcome to another Big Conversation with Patrick Evans and Randy Florence, presented by the McCallum Theater. Visit McCallumTheater.org or reach the box office at 760-340-2787. Gentlemen,
Thank you very much, Howard. We are here at Skip Page's Little Bar for another edition of Big Conversations Little Bar, brought to you by the McCallum Theater. And once again, we want to give a shout out to the great entertainment, the great programming, the great educational programs that are available to the entire Coachella Valley at the McCallum Theater. Truly is the Valley. It's the center of the Coachella Valley theater universe, as much as this bar is the center.
Yeah, it's just a couple of blocks away.
That's the voice of my good friend and co-host, Mr. Randy Florence. I'm Patrick Evans. Thanks for being here. We got John McMullen manning the board. Thank you, John, as always. Randy, how are you?
I got promoted.
To co-host.
You promoted me to co-host.
Well,
I'm back to co-host.
Artificial intelligence says you're the sidekick, and I think we must succumb to our mechanical overlords.
I thought maybe I shined last week and earned it. Hey, before we get started.
Look, it says dress for the job you want. You've dressed for golf course marshal.
Or podcast sidekick. I need to say something here. This is important.
Okay.
You've gotten some more bling.
Yes.
You have won, and the KESQ morning team, is that correct? Best daytime TV newscast from the Radio and TV News Association. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you very much. That was an award that we received for a broadcast last year. They got around to giving the awards. And so you get to take home a Golden Mike trophy, which is it's a nice trophy to get.
It looked pretty cool.
It's pretty cool. I was very pleased to get it. And, Angela and Jeff from our morning program, along with the entire, team, deserve it because we put the best morning show on.
Yeah, but it's really you.
Of course it is,
yeah.
But I don't want to say that. That would feel less than magnanimous.
That's why I said it right after you passed me that note.
I can't disagree with you, Randy. I'd like to, but I can't. I just can't.
Well, congratulations to you and the morning team.
Thank you. And I'm sure this podcast is going to win many, many awards.
Okay.
Did they give awards for podcasts, John? If they do, this one will win it because we are here with a delightful gentleman. I've got to spend time with him, but he has had one of the most impressive music careers and other management as well, but really diving deep into the music industry. Harvey Lisberg is here, and Harvey wrote a great book called I'm Into Something Good, My Life Managing 10cc, Herman's Hermits, and many more. Congratulations on the book. You did a book signing exactly a year ago today in Santa Monica that kicked off this kind of media frenzy that you've been on. You've been doing podcasts, interviews. You graced us with a presence on Eye on the Desert.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for having me on your program. I'm looking forward to this. The whole point of my life was, as a manager, was to be in the background. So I was never seen as a person. And I was never going to write any memoirs or do anything like that. But when COVID came, everybody was saying, you know so much about the British invasion, the time of the 60s, all those things that happened. You were there. And if you don't put them down, they're going to be lost forever. So I decided to do the memoir with Charlie Thomas. He came to my house in Rancho Mirage for 5 days, listened to me rabbit on about a load of nonsense, all the stories from the past, and wrote it down in a book. And then I realized nobody knew who the hell I was.
Well, this podcast isn't going to help, Harvey. I'm sorry.
Well, it's too late for that.
He's already here. He has a drink.
Here.
He's here for the duration. It was such a fascinating time in the world history, the 60s, but in the world of music, so much was going on, and you were right in the middle of it.
Yeah, it was quite amazing, really. Once the Beatles surfaced in England, it revolutionized everything from fashion to art to the idea that you didn't have to wait for somebody to die to take over a job. So you got young people, you could wear jeans, you could do anything you liked. Whereas before that, everybody had bowler hats, umbrellas, down 9 o'clock, close at 5. Everything was regimented to this kind of way of life.
It's safe
following
to
on
say,
from the war.
It's safe to say that Britain was a very buttoned-down society.
Absolutely. It was a landed gentry society.
Right. And
we were the serfs.
yeah, I mean, this working-class group of lads coming out of Liverpool, which was a very working-class town, as I understand. I've never been there.
Oh, yes, it's very working class. It's the docks, the main part of entry for all the goods that used to come around the world when England was great. In the Victorian Empire, when the Queen Victoria was in charge. And we had our colonies and we ruled the world. Incorrectly, but we did it.
I saw something. This is a total aside, but one of the biggest holiday celebration across the world is independence from Britain. There are so many countries that.
That's awesome.
Well, as I
never thought about that.
Each year it was India, then it was the West Indies, then it was this one, then it was that one. We managed to keep Australia and Canada. I don't know how, but as it happens, it was a load of nonsense. England went in everywhere, and as a child, I was inundated by the garbage the teachers used to tell me at school. Oh yes, that everybody was savages. The English went and trained them. No, they didn't. They divided them. They made sure divide and conquer. Go in there, take the land, take the money, get it all back on the East India Company, back to the Liverpool docks, make your fortunes, buy your land and keep everybody else out.
Not an uncommon story.
1% probably of the population own everything.
Well,
and they had to bow to the Queen.
So much of that changed in the 60s, and it was led culturally by the British invasion, the music. Not just the Beatles, but also Herman's Hermits, Peter Noon. How did that all come about? You sort of you did discover Peter.
Yeah, well, I was an accountant being bored out of my mind. Because in those days, you didn't have computers. There were human computers, slaves.
Yeah.
And that's what I was doing all day. I was musical. I'd had a musical background. My father was a musician. And I sort of learned the guitar and piano. And I was interested in songs. I used to write songs. And I decided once the Beatles had started that, right, we'll get our songs to various people, the songs that I wrote. Anyhow, nobody wanted to know about any of the songs that I wrote. So maybe they weren't that good. I think they were okay, but that's with retrospect, and they've survived 50 years. So.
And some of those you were writing in your position as a football manager, correct?
Yeah, but the football came on later.
Oh, okay.
The development of all my career started with music.
Got it.
Don't rush the story.
And it's all right. No, it's just.
I'm going to get him to football.
You would like football, do you? I love football. So I saw a good game today. Anyhow, what we were talking about.
So you were studying accountancy.
Right. And then I was writing songs, and I decided to get songs to artists, and of course, everybody rejected them. So I thought, right, well, I'll get my own group. And if I get a group...
And make them sing your songs.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the idea. So I indirectly got to see this group who were appearing at a Davy Hume club, and I went there, and I was absolutely flabbergasted that after each number that they did, which was the standard set that most acts were doing at that time, Chuck Berry, Everly Brothers, various songs, everybody seemed to do. And then at the end of the number, the stage was charged by all these screaming teenagers, aged probably 12, 13, 14, 15, because it was a youth club. And I thought, right, I've won the national lottery, this is it. They were Herman and the Hermits, as they were known then. So that was a stroke of luck on my part. It wasn't any genius. I had walked into a gold mine just by luck. As I always say, luck's very important in your development.
It was luck because you were the first guy to recognize what they were doing.
I think what it was more that I wanted a band that was successful, that's going to do my music. And this lot looked as though they'd already made it with a following. They told me afterwards that they told all their friends there was an American manager coming to see the group, and would they scream? So everything was, it's like they knew I was coming, so they baked a cake. So that was it.
What was the in the early part of that, what was the attraction from them to you?
Oh, from their point of view, it was great. The manager was coming to look at this unknown group. They didn't have a manager, and the manager presumably would help them with their career. And that, Epstein had happened with the Beatles, so he was iconic, and everybody was starting to get managers and realizing that the manager was the most important thing in 1963.
See, now that I think is a really interesting aspect of what was going on in the music industry, because bands were just kind of carving out things for themselves, but then the Beatles discovered the magic of having someone tool all of that for you.
Yeah, I think it evolved. There had been managers of other bands, like all the earlier acts like Tommy Steele or Cliff Richard. They all had managers as it happened, but I think Brian Epstein, because the Beatles were so big and they took over the world, he was like the god, and that was it.
So you grab a hold of this band, Herman, and
I say to Peter, would you like me to sign you? And he said, well, come and see my parents. So I went round to his house.
And how old was Peter Noon at this time?
Well, he was born in 1948, so he would have been 15.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow.
I think that's right, 1963, 48 and 15.
Yeah.
That's probably right. Yeah, so he was 15. And I went round to his house and started playing on the piano, because I was messing around. They had a grand piano there. And I always remember as I played Tell Me What I Say by Ray Charles, because I was doing that. And Peter said, would I like to join the band? And I said, no, I want to manage the band and I want you to do my music. So he said, okay, and that was it.
And so just rattle off some of the songs that were yours that Herman's Hermits did.
Well, they did the B-side of I'm Into Something Good, which is Your Hand in Mine. They did 4 B-sides, which I was involved in the writing of, and about 8 or 9 other songs on various albums, some of which I'm proud of, and some of them I'm not so proud of.
Some you don't talk about anymore.
Well, there were so many bad songs that sold millions that I don't have any bad feelings about it. There was an artist called Ken Dodd in England who was a comedian. He had a song called Tears which sold 2 million in about 6 months, and I never found one person that bought it. And there's only 80 million people in England, so you'd think 1 in 40 would have bought it, but nobody. So, and it was an awful song. It was dreadful. It was really bad.
I went back and I was thinking today, I'm Into Something Good was recorded in 64. Does that sound about
correct?
Right?
It was released August 64, but it was actually originally done in America by Earl Jean.
Right.
And because the function of a manager was to get a recording contract. Without a recording contract, you're nothing. You can't do anything. So all my initial escapades were to try and get a management contract. And I managed to get Mickey Most through a series of events, which will go on forever if we discuss that. But he came up to Manchester because I sent him 2 first-class tickets on a plane and a hotel, 5-star hotel, and said, would you come up and see this band, Herman and the Hermits? So he came up and he saw the band. I sent him photographs first, and he liked the look of the band. And as I said to everybody, it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good was, yes, Mickey liked the band. The bad was, I'll take the band, but you've got to get rid of 2 of them, right? So I've got to lose 2 players that have been really integral part of the band. And the ugly was me having to get rid of them.
Now, did I read the story that the bass player or somebody played with their back to the person the whole time?
That's possible, but I don't really see the relevance of that. It's possible.
Well, he ended up getting fired because of it. That's what I read.
That isn't true. He got fired because Mickey Most said,
get rid of him.
Get rid of him. Get rid of the bass player, get rid of the drummer. There was no, we won't sign you. So I had no choice.
Yeah.
Well, I did have a choice. Choice is you don't have a recording contract with a producer that was kind of hot. At the time, House of the Rising Sun was one in every country in the world. Mickey had produced that. So for that guy to offer you this track, and then I heard the track, which was magnificent. I'm Into Something Good, and there's a hell of a story attached to that, which I'm not going to go into.
Oh, come on.
No. Well, it's basically, I think that Carole King was having marital problems with Goffin, I think, at the time, or something like that. they were going through a divorce or something. And Earl Jean's record, and I think the girl from Earl Jean was the one that was having the affair with Goffman or something.
with Goffman, yeah, okay.
So something like that was going on. So I always surmised afterwards, well, maybe they got together and he said, I'm into something good or something. I don't know.
Where it came
but
from.
she was very happy, I think, that Earl Jean's record wasn't a hit, but Herman's Hermits was the hit.
Yeah.
And that was really ironic if you analyse all that scenario with all that drama going on. But I love Carole King's writing. She's a magnificent writer, as is Goffin. The Goffin King are fantastic.
Well, I brought this up because I was thinking back and looking at your career, and I think there's a good possibility that Something Good is the first song I ever remember.
Really?
And because I was 7 when it came out, and because of it, it really kind of put me on a path to the music I liked.
Right.
Herman's Hermits, 10cc,
Yeah.
Paul Revere and the Raiders
Yeah.
eventually. And I wasn't going down the path of the Stones and the Who and all of that. I was a little too young for that.
You were the clean-cut one.
I was the clean-cut one. But I know you've got a story about
What
the
happened
Who.
to you?
I got old.
Yeah, well, there were two sides, weren't there? There was the Beatles, and then there was the Rolling Stones.
Right.
So that they were like, one was the clean cut. I'll tell the story that, can you imagine a teenage girl bringing a member of the Beatles home, and the mother would think, oh, they're a bit funny, long hair, I don't think I like that very much. And then if they brought a Rolling Stone came with him, the mother goes to the cyanide pills in the upstairs. And if Peter came, here's a clean-cut Catholic boy, blue eyes, well-spoken, nice-looking lad. That's all right. So that was it. So I was different to a lot of people. I like the Beatles and the Stones. I'd love the Stones music. I thought they were a great band. They are a great band.
They're still on tour.
Yeah, they're on tour.
In 1964 or 65, would you have banked that the Stones would be the band on tour now versus the Beatles?
I'm surprised
Or that any of them would still be alive.
I mean, that's the miracle. Unfortunately, Charlie Watts did die, but and he was the most normal of the lot. So where do you go from there?
Yeah, it's true. That is true. Looking back at that, and you had the Beatles, this international sensation, and you find this group of British lads in your band, and a similar sound to some degree. What was the thought process back then? Did you want to mimic the success of the Beatles?
I can't really take any credit for that whatsoever. That's entirely Mickey Most, just finding a song.
Oh, really?
Give me a man something good. We then had a follow-up song called Show Me Girl, which again on the Goffin King thing was rather funny because it was like, show me girl, you're going to be really true. That was a total
There's
disaster.
a whole undercurrent of what was going on in Carole King's marriage.
Maybe, we don't know, but the timing fits for that. Now then they had a hit. They had a big hit next, and what was he doing? Silhouettes, I think. Well, I don't know. We had Silhouettes, Can't You Hear My Heartbeat, and then coincidentally we had Listen People in America, which was in the film where the boys meet the girls with Connie France or whatever. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yes. Where the boys are.
The soundtrack of our youth.
The soundtrack of your youth. I enjoy that music, but it's nostalgia for me.
It's a nice song. Listen People is a beautiful song written by Graham Gouldman.
I will tell you this, though. I'll bet, other than Harvey, I'm the only person sitting at the table that's seen Peter Newton in concert.
John?
Nope. Well, just for in case anybody hasn't seen him, I can tell you now, he's better now than he ever has been. He's earning more money per year now than he ever has been.
Really?
And he's a seasoned professional. He's got the gift of the gab. He's singing very well. He's got a good band with him. And he's an entertainer, an all-round entertainer. So that was also the difference with the other bands. Although the Beatles had humour, the Stones didn't have any humour. They were going to tear everything to pieces with the Who, But the Beatles did have a lot of humour in their music. But Peter would clown around on stage. I don't think the Beatles... Well, it didn't matter what the Beatles did on stage. Everybody was screaming. You couldn't hear anything.
Right.
With a deafening screaming roar that you can't imagine what it was like going to see.
So you're managing the band. Mr. Most is producing everything.
Yeah.
What were your separation of duties? What were you responsible for?
I was the puppet master.
Okay.
I had publicity. I had to employ a publicity agent, accountant, lawyer. I did nothing. I just had to employ a delegate everything. So everything would get to an agency, we'd work to the agent. And my job was to just coordinate it all. If there's tours, you get a tour manager. I mean, that's what it is. It's like being in an army where you're just...
And you're the general.
Absolutely.
So, but this is where you cut your teeth. It was your very first managerial gig.
Yeah, I was green as green.
But you did it exceptionally well.
So did Epstein. Well, I was, first of all, well, it's no good saying I wasn't an idiot, but I wasn't an idiot because I'd been trained in an accounting manner, so I had an accounting kind of background. All that was so somebody that wasn't an accountant, had no knowledge of finance or commerce, would not be as good as I was. I was careful. I was making sure they all made their money, and when we got the deal, the $1 million deal, or was it £1 million deal, I knew they were set for life if they wanted to be.
What was the £1 million deal? What was it?
It was with MGM. We'd had a whole pile of hits. And then, I'll tell you the story, because I had a little office. It was teeny, and it kept an absolute mess. There was a huge table, and on top of it were cassettes and everything to do with music, all sling all over the place. There was cigarettes here, there was cards there, because every day we used to play cards for about 2 hours at lunchtime. And I get in a Monday morning, and as I go up these horrible stairs on top of a Chinese restaurant with a waft of curry coming through and stick, there's this guy in a seersuckered suit with a cigar this long, 2 feet long cigar, and his sidekick. Are you Harvey Lisberg? Yeah, I'm Harvey Lisberg. We want your boys for a film. I said, there's no way. I said, the date sheet's completely full. He said, we want your boys for a film. I said, well, come in the office. And it wasn't Santa Monica overlooking the sea, you know. There were no windows. It was one of those back...
Was there even a second chair in the office?
There were chairs, and that's about all. There were chairs and table. Anyhow, we had this discussion. So he said, I want you boys just come up and do this film for us. We'll only want them for a week. I said, I haven't got a week. Look at the date sheet. And he looked. He said, you've got there. Well, I made something for 4 days. He said, what about there? He says, we'll give you $20,000. I said, no. I said, we can't do it. He says, $40,000. No. $45,000. He says, is there anything we can give you that would entice you to do the film? So I said, a Cadillac. You got it. I hadn't finished the sentence yet. This effing big Cadillac arrives at Salford Docks, all covered in dirty black oil. So when it came off, I thought, oh my God, what is that?
They've ruined my car.
It was horrible. It cleaned up. It was this magnificent Cadillacs. And we had a deal. So each boy had it for 4 months.
Oh, they gave one car and you all got to drive it.
Yeah, with 4 months each. And then at the end, I took it over and drove it for the rest of the time. It just about got in the drive at my parents' house, about 1 inch on either side. Because in England, we didn't have big cars. Right. Everything was small. So that was, I don't know where we're going with this, but that's where I'm at.
Well, but that was the big break.
Yeah, well, that was to do. We were going to the $1 million deal. You see, that was the first film. Then we did that. Then we did a second film, which was Hold On. Third film, Mrs. Brandy Got a Lovely Daughter, and that was all tied into this $1 million deal. And then they were set for life virtually, and everybody was in love with each other. There were no squalms, there were no problems, nothing. Everybody liked everybody. It was a warm, terrific atmosphere. It obviously changed eventually, but at that stage, those 3 years, because we were so green, everybody was learning. I passed on Joseph and Dreamcoat Publishing.
Yes.
I mean, so what did I know?
Well, I read about that. You had Andrew Lloyd Webber approach you.
Yeah, Tim Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber brought a song up for Herman's Hermits, and it was called I Fancy You. It was called I Fancy You at the time. And I took it to Mickey Most. He rejected it after playing about 4 seconds of it.
Wow.
Right. Oh, put it. No. It subsequently was a #1 for Jason Donovan and Joseph and the Dream. Any Dream Will Do. That was that song. So So I said,
well, look, turned out okay for Tim and Andrew.
Have you got anything else? They said, oh yeah, we've got this thing called Joseph and the Dream Car. I said, Joseph from the Bible. yeah. I said, great, that sounds fantastic. The evangelicals are going to love this in America. It's perfect. Have you got? Yes, we've got this record, and Tim Rice has Potiphar on it. And I thought, I'll get this sorted. So I went to 16 record companies, and I was maybe the fourth most powerful manager in the world. Every single one rejected it. They didn't want to know. No chance. Forget it. And that was it.
Was it the biblical connection? Was it just the backstory?
I thought it was a great idea that schools could do it. I mean, it's to do with the Old Testament. It's a nice story anyhow.
It's a great story. Yeah, of course.
It had everything you needed for a nice story for the theatre. And I wanted to get into the theatre as well. That was another thing. I was very pleased to be able to get into the theatre because I wanted to be a real theatrical impresario that did everything, But anyhow, having had all that rejection, I said, look, I'll put you on a management development deal for 3 years, which I did. And so they got paid X pound a week. We paid all our writers pittances, like $10 a week each or something to keep the wolves at bay. And we had Godley and Cream, we had Graham Gorman, we had Tim Rice, Andrew Lloyd Webber, Peter Karp, Mark Jordan.
Wow.
Millions of other writers, and they were all good standard writers, and everybody didn't like the Rice Webber stuff. They all thought that was too, I don't know what the word was, And I'd rubbed their nose in it for 50 years. So I got my nose rubbed in it. And
I'm certain you did.
Every time I go somewhere, Joseph in the Jeep cab. I know in 2004 at the Ivor Novello Awards, we were getting an award for something. 10cc was getting awards for industry, and I met Tim Rice, and he said, "Do you want to know what I earned off the off Joseph for the quarter?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, we actually got a cheque for £394,000. So that's 28 years after I had it. He got a cheque for like $500,000 for one quarter." And I'm thinking, oh no. I sort of reminisced to Charlie, the writer, and I said, well, if I had got the publishing and I kept it, because I was so green I didn't know what day it was, but if I had done that, maybe I wouldn't be living today, because my excesses would have been so far beyond what they were.
I like the silver lining that you're carving out of that story. I think.
Well, I need some hope. I mean, it's like anybody that's every time you see Jesus Christ, suddenly, oh no, again, give me a break. But actually, I'm very friendly with Tim Rice, and I've done a lot of work with him. Tony Christie did a track. Graham wrote a song with him. So he's a really lovely man. He's lovely.
Let me go back to Herman's Hermits.
Go ahead.
You talked about how strong that group was together. How long did that original band stay together in its original form?
Till 1972, I think.
Really?
So that's about 8 years. They had a lot of hits.
Yeah.
They had huge hits in America, and then America wiped the hands of them. After about...
There's a Kind of Hush. Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter.
Henry VIII. Can't You Hear My Heartbeat? Dandy. I'm Into Something Good.
I love all those songs.
Me too.
They're happy. They feel good songs.
Yeah, they're great songs. They're great songs.
Yeah.
So in 1972, you said America kind of washed their hands. What happened?
No, they washed their hands way before that. Because we didn't have any hits for a while, after Mrs. Brown didn't do maybe the business, and not Mrs. Brown, the record, the film,
the movie,
maybe didn't do the thing, and MGM stopped paying them. So, and there was a product commitment we had to give. So I went to them and I said, look, we've got a studio, Strawberry. You go and record 50 tracks in 2 weeks. Just do them. Do the Hollies, do the Monkees, do whatever you like. Any songs you like, and all our songs, do them. And give them to MGM. And they did, and they had a legal battle with MGM and settled the thing in 2012. I think they
in 2012?
Yeah. Well, it's not easy bringing a case in America. Not everybody wants to do it, I mean, I was involved in 2004 and 5, but nobody was that. Somebody later on got involved in doing the case, and they did it, and they got the money. So,
and what happened to all those songs they recorded?
They're out. They're on the great. There's a track called Blaze. That's 50 tracks. All those tracks were done as a settlement. And I think there's a new album just went out recently with all the old tracks and everything. It's really nice.
And all these covers?
All these covers and everything on it. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's really nice.
That's very cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not involved with it now. Obviously, I stopped being involved in 1973, but,
So how did... And I really appreciate Randy's question. I'm curious because, we all kind of know the story of
going back to it, yes. So in 1967, we were finished in America. That was it. MGM didn't put any more product out even. But in England, we had a huge hit with My Sentimental Friend. So in effect, in England, we started to get popular, really popular, whereas America is gone. And then they started doing cabaret, and they did it all. And then Peter split from the band and did Oh You Pretty Things, which is a David Bowie number, which David Bowie played on the record and went on TV with Peter when Peter sang it. So, it was quite a thing. And then Peter came to America and became a VJ or something.
So, Harvey, at that point, America was moving into some things. The Vietnam War, protests, the hippie movement. Herman's Hermits was kind of still the same group that they had been, those clean-cut, fun kind of people. Did America just kind of leave them behind because they didn't change?
No, because Mickey most controlled all the recordings, and by then Mickey was doing his own thing. He had his own record label. He had lots of acts. Susie Quatler, Hot Chocolate, this one, that one. I mean, he was a mammoth producer. And Herman's Hermits were gone. Yesterday's news.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Every band, it happens. I mean,
well, it doesn't happen to the Stones. Yeah, well, it does happen. The Beatles haven't. Paul McCartney's not had a hit for 30 years. The greatest songwriter of all time, maybe.
He still collects money for Happy Birthday, so.
Did he write that?
No, but he bought the rights.
Oh, he bought the rights.
I think he gets. Well, he used to get £1,000 a second or a minute in royalties. So it takes you to a different stratosphere.
That's a different lifestyle than we're living. We get free drinks
football.
Here at Little Bar.
Let's go back to football.
Okay. You want to go back to football?
Well, I was Mancunian. That means I was born in Salford, actually, but Manchester.
Right.
And they had two great teams, City and United. But United were great for from 1947 onwards. There's a manager called Matt Busby. He was tremendous. And they have had success after success. They won leagues, and they were the number one team. And City were like the underdogs, and I supported City because I wanted to support the underdog when I was young. And then ultimately, after so much rejection and so much depression, the manager got rid of a greatest player, I thought, called Dennis Law, and I thought, I've had enough of this, I'm going to follow United. And I moved over to United, got season tickets there, and we're probably nearly the oldest season ticket holders there now.
Really?
We got our season tickets in 1964.
Wow.
So, and now they've got a plaque on the seat because you got your name, you're that old,
That's so cool, though.
And then City took over about 10 years ago. They started to have success. Now they're the best team in England. They won the league 4 times on the road. And football's very important in England, and Liverpool. There's a rivalry. Liverpool and Manchester.
Yes.
Football.
Did you play as a youth?
Yeah. I really did. Yeah, I love football.
And so talk about how your move into management with that.
Well, what happened was I wanted to expand. Like I said, I was always interested in expanding. I wanted to have a ticket agency. I wanted to do this, that, the other. So I decided to start. I managed an England footballer in the early 60s called Fred Pickering, who played for Everton. I managed him for a while, but it sort of subsided. He never paid anything, not that it mattered, because it was only like a verbal contract. And then I managed an England under-21 captain called Gary Owen. And that was important because he was at Manchester City and he wanted to go to Manchester United. So I phoned up Manchester United. I said, look, I'd like to talk to you about the transfer. And they said, we don't talk to managers. Put the phone down. Well, that was nice. Well, the management have got their own back now because they have to speak to managers and get screwed into the ground. So that was that. I mean, and then I managed another footballer, but it didn't come to anything. It led to snooker eventually, and Jimmy White and Alex Higgins, and they were the two of the greatest in the world.
And at that time, snooker was a massive game in the world.
Hot.
Yeah.
And I revolutionized it. They all had dinner suits and bow ties, and they all looked like penguins. And I said, right, Jimmy White, I went to the south of France, got this houndstooth suit. It was fantastic. God, it took him back to England, made him up, got Lord Lichfield to do a photograph of him. She'd just done Princess Diana's wedding and everything, so it all tied in. I always use the best PR, best photo. always went on that way.
You knew how to turn somebody into a star.
Oh, definitely, yes. I had we just used the best people.
Yeah.
You know, it's not being a genius.
Well, it sounds like you were the best people, Harvey.
I was okay.
We're going to come back to our conversation with Harvey Lisberg. We're just having so much fun with Harvey, but we do want to pause and recognize our presenting sponsor, the McCallum Theater, the cultural center of the Coachella Valley in the theater world.
The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now. The world's top artists, from jazz, pop, classical, and comedy to the best of Broadway. Only at the Valley's favorite place for great entertainment. Tickets are on sale now at the McCallum Theater box office, by phone, or online at McCallumtheater.org. Tickets sell quickly, so order yours today. A new, exciting season only at the McCallum. The McCallum Theater's 2024-2025 season is on sale now.
Thank you very much, McCallum Theater, our presenting sponsor, and we return now to our conversation with Mr. Harvey Lisberg, a gentleman who's experienced so much in the music world, and we're so grateful that he's sharing it with us today. Let's talk about how 10cc came about.
10cc were, well, it's really Graham. Graham wrote a lot of the material for Herman's Hermits, and I managed him. He was very important to me, and we had a lot of success with him. We formed our own publishing companies and everything, and all the music went into it.
Let's talk about the origins of 10cc, and this goes back to your Herman's Hermits days.
Yeah, once Herman's Hermits was successful, and the function of the manager was to find songs originally, then the record producer became important. And then the songwriter, again, was very important. So I thought, well, I need to get songwriters, and that's how I got all the string of songwriters, Godly Creep. Graham first. Graham was in a band called the Whirlwinds, which are quite a good band, but they didn't do any original material. They just do cover versions like everybody else. And I saw Graham and quite regularly practicing. And I don't know why, because I was an accountant. I don't know what I was doing looking at that band. Maybe I wanted to be involved because they were so successful or not. And I spoke to him and said, would you like to join me? And nothing happened. And then when Herman's Hermits got popular, I reapproached him. And I said, look, why don't you join me? Let me try with you. And he said, okay, I'll do it. And I went to see his parents. We got through everything together, and I said, well, look, why don't you just write songs? Forget about the band. He was in a band. The band was also getting nowhere. They put records out. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. So
nothing ever happened.
But he was writing good songs.
Beautiful songs. And For Your Love came along, and I thought, right, that's it. I was sort of involved in the writing. So there was 8 of us in a room, and he started doing, I said, well, before we started, I'd suggested, why don't you do something like House of the Rising Sun? And he surreptitiously changed the last chord. And he just played the 4th chord of House of the Rising Sun, which was really quite amazing. And he came up with this For Your Love, For Your Love. And in the middle, I said, why don't you change it? And he changed the beat in the middle. He did a rock and roll beat. And we were going on with the 8 people in the room. Guy was the bongo player, was slapping on the wall, and everybody was shouting, For Your Love, For Your Love. And it was a real atmosphere in this little room. And then when it was finished, I said, that's it. That's a smash. We've got to get it to the Beatles. So Graham said, don't be ridiculous. The Beatles aren't going to be interested. They've got, as he says now, they had reasonable writing talent of their own. I said, yeah, but they did other songs. They did Chains. They did other songs in the first album that weren't theirs. But I didn't realize all those were actually hits. Those were cover hits. They weren't unknown songs of an unknown writer. Subsequently, they did do a few of other writers, but at that stage, so Graham said, you're mad, it's just crazy. And he credits me with being insane, but some of the ideas worked, and he was happy with the ones that worked. So we went to see the Beatles, and when I was telling about not being able to hear anything, this horrible, crackling, screaming mass, we had a guy behind us who published the song, For Your Love. And I said, would you get that to the Beatles at the interval, please? I gave him the demo, and he looked at me. He came back sheepishly at the end. He said, would you mind if I played it to the opening act? I said, who are they? He said, the Yardbirds. I said, I bloody would mind. I said, I've what? Let's go to the Beatles. I don't know the Yardbirds, rhythm and blues band. What the hell's? It's not even right for them. And he looks at me and he said, well, would you speak to the manager? And I was a professional enough to do that. All right, I'll speak to Giorgio. Giorgio's a Russian-like manager who actually managed the Rolling Stones, had a Crawdaddy club, and he was interested in rhythm and blues. And he went, oh, it's all right, the lady voice, Harvey. You must come on. Can we do the song? And he taught the arse off me. I had no chance. I had to give in to him. I said, all right, we'll try it. So we tried it. It caused that terrible problem with Clapton, who left the band because he didn't want to play that sort of music. He wanted to be a blues man. That's what he wanted to be. So they got a very poor alternative, Jeff Beck.
I've heard of him.
You know, they'll do so badly.
Wow.
So that was the story of For Your Love. And then it went to number one.
What I like about all of these stories is you, throughout this, you have an incredible ear.
Yeah.
You know what a hit's going to be.
Yeah, that was just a gift.
But I think it's really important to the story that you tell. You know, when you're managing these young musicians and you dabbled in music, you wouldn't call yourself a musician, but you have this incredible ear to hear a song and say, yeah, that's got something.
I think it's all to do with my background. I mean, you know, my father kept playing opera all day and night in the house. It's Puccini out of my mind. I want to hear Puccini again, please. You know, they had this fellow called Benjamin Ogili, who was a singer, a very fine tenor. He was the number one tenor at the time, and all the time. And the next door neighbour, there was a girl that I quite liked, and her father they were Hungarian. All they had there was bloody Beethoven, and it was all classical music, no pop, nothing. The only pop music we heard was on the American Forces Network programme, and occasionally BBC One that had like one programme that did that sort of thing. So I was really, and then synagogue music and choral music. I loved church music. I loved all music. It was just a thing. And so then I started listening to music, and I could pick hits. I don't know what it was. It's just, that's a hit. I mean, I got hits that I knew were hits and I couldn't deal with. The Mamas and Papas sent me Monday. I got into this smelly office I was talking about, deal with this guy, and I get this demo and I put it on. And
what
I thought,
a great
right,
song. What a great song, Monday.
Yeah, I'm managing Gwen Fontana. Let's do it. It's so good. It's just beautiful. We couldn't do it because we couldn't do it as well. We just couldn't.
You listened to the demo and you're like, well, I can't match that.
We can't do that, no. That was the end of that. But every time a song came, like You've Got Your Troubles by the Fortunes.
I love that song.
You can hear that. That's a smash, you know. In the summertime, smash. And Mungo Jerry, you can't. There were songs that were. You don't get that anymore.
The music has changed an awful lot. You know.
Don't hear, well, there's not the quantity. Yes, it's all self-composed and they're all involved in production.
All right, so let's get back to the formation. So Graham was the heart of the formation of 10cc, but he was writing great music.
Yeah.
Had a band, wasn't a great band, but then you helped put together
writing, and he started just doing writing for Kasnet's Cats in America. He came and did a session with them because they wanted more serious music. Yeah, it's a long story, 10cc, but anyhow. So Graham started writing for everybody else. He had hits with Wayne Fontana, Pamela, which is mine. He had hits with Herman's Hermits, No Milk Today, East West. 4 songs in the film Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter. And he was a very successful writer, but then he went cold in about 1967 or 8. So we then did various other things. We went to America for Kasnet's Cats. They were the Bubblegum Kings who did Simon Says and that sort of thing. They were looking for something a bit more intelligent. They wanted to get away from
the
bubblegum. They wanted to be serious bubblegum. And Graham did
double bubble.
Yeah, trouble gum. Anyhow, so Graham did Sausalito and various other songs. In the meantime, we started Strawberry Studios. So they had a studio in England, and Graham got really fed up of being in America and talked Kasnet's Cats into allowing him to go back to England and do all the demos there. And they did lots of wonderful material. They put out under different titles, different names. And although there was no success, it was kind of a it sort of filled a gap in the time for Graham.
And it was material that people respected.
Yeah, it was lovely material. They all went out on different labels. And they just weren't hits, It's just one of those things. They're very good songs.
How did they do with the fact that these didn't turn into big hits? Was that?
Well, Kevin Loll had 10 years of rejection. I mean, they wrote beautiful songs in 1964 at the same time as Graham. They were just beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful songs, and they're still up to date. They're great songs, but the timing wasn't right. They also they went on as Runcible Spoon, Frobjoy and Runcible Spoon with Georgia Gomolski, and again, they just didn't happen.
So what
They fiddled around in the studio, Strawberry, and messing around on the drum kit, where Eric's trying to get sounds for the studio. And they hit one, this strange beat, I'm a Neanderthal Man, which was like there's a song in England, I don't know if you've heard it, the Grand Old Duke of York. I don't think you have heard that here.
I have not.
It's the Grand Old Duke of York. He had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the hill and he marched them down again. That's the song.
It's a very British song.
Yeah.
It's a very British song.
Yeah. So they did I'm a Neanderthal Man, you're a Neanderthal girl, let's make Neanderthal love in this Neanderthal world. Anyhow, they fiddle around on the studio and they do this thing, and there's somebody came to the studio, I think it was Dick Leahy, who was from another record company, and he said, what's that going on in there? And they said, oh, it's this playing around. That's a hit. He did what I did. That's a smash.
That's it. I heard
That's
it.
a smash. So yeah, what do you mean it's that? Well, and he agreed to pay them money. Then all right, they got £500 for this piece of whatever.
Nice.
And it went to number 2 in the charts.
Oh my gosh.
And all over Europe it was a hit. I don't think it was a hit in America. America was different. America's radio is very formatted.
Speaking of America and American radio, can we talk for a moment about Neil Sedaka?
Absolutely. Well, that was talking, when you said I had good ears, that was the best example I've got of my ears. I went to the Brill building to see Donny Kirshner, who I was very friendly with, because of initially I'm Into Something Good, which is a Screen Gem song. And I go to the office and I said, what's happened to Neil Sedaka? He's dead and buried since the Beatles. So he said, yeah, well, unfortunately, he has had a rough time, but he's upstairs. I said, you're joking, he's upstairs? Great. Can I see him? So I said, yeah, come up with your wife. So I went up with Carol. We went upstairs, and there's Neil on the piano. Little room, really 10 foot by 6 foot, with a piano in it, upright. And Donny said, play him some of your songs. So play me 4 pieces of garbage. Then he played well, I shouldn't say that, especially on the air, but all right, change it.
He hasn't
4
listened
songs
yet.
which were
This will be the
left
first podcast he listens to. He's going to,
No, I don't like that. No, you mustn't say that. Cut that out, please.
We'll cut it out. He played 4 songs that you didn't care for.
Correct. And then he played another song, and I thought, oh my God, that's fantastic. That is amazing. And that was It Is the Way to Amarillo.
You're told that Neil Sedaka is upstairs.
Yes.
And you're very excited by this because
Neil Sedaka I'd always was a huge fan of since the early or late 50s, Calendar Girl, Breaking Up Is Hard to Do, on and on and on. I just loved Neil Sedaka. He was very talented, very, very talented, very good songwriter. And of course the Beatles killed him dead. So the Beatles had opened the door for all the English acts and closed the door for all the American acts, and that's what happened. So he's playing the 5th song he plays 4 songs which are pretty mediocre, and the 5th one is This the Way to Amarillo? I thought, that's great. And the middle was sha-la-la-la-la-la-la, something like that. I said, I want that, just as it is. You don't have to. He was worried about writing lyrics on the middle. I just give me as it is.
just give me the sha-la-la.
That was a very important part of the song, but they were, and also it was Is This the Way to Pensacola originally, which they changed to Amarillo.
Wow.
So Carol said to me, you've got to get a copy of that demo, because I had an artist called Tony Christie, who was a very fine singer, a cross between Tom Jones and Tony Bennett, really great singer. And he'd had about 3 hits in England, and we were looking for stuff for him. And I went back to England, and nothing happened. So Carol said, phone him up. Phone up Danny Kirshner. So I phoned up Danny Kirshner. When are you going to send me this bloody demo? Like 2 months later, nothing happens. Finally, it arrives. I go down to London the same day on a train, see Mitch Murray and Peter Callender, who produced Tony Christie. They went in the studio. 2 days later, they put the record out. It went in about to number 18, which is a total disgrace, because it was far better than a number 18. I was really pissed.
And some people give their eye teeth for a number 18,
yeah. but it wasn't a number 18. It was such a and I was annoyed it hadn't happened in America. It got to number 4 Kiss FM at LA. That was it. It didn't happen here. So finally, Donnie Kirshner hears. He says, "You've got good ears, Harvey." I thought I had good ears, but my God, that's amazing. And back to Donnie Kirshner. So he said, why not let Neil come over to England and do some of his songs? So Neil Sedaka came over to England, and he came to the studio, and the studio was like Kevin Godley, Lol Cream, Graham Gooman, and Eric was the engineer, and those were 4 of them. And they started doing his recording with Neil. Neil had fantastic music. Solitaire.
The Solitaire album was amazing.
That's where the music takes me. The Trollard days are over. They were magnificent songs. And before he started, he did a little concert. Everybody sat on the floor, actually on the floor, and he's got the grand piano. And he runs through his repertoire, Calendar Girl, Breaking of His Heart 2, all his songs. He had a little concert for them, and they went and did the thing. He recorded everything first time, no messing, first time on voice, first time on harmonies, 1 take each time, just like that. And instead of doing 3 tracks, he did 2 albums and stayed for God knows how long.
His comeback was huge, wasn't it?
Well, the songs were pretty good, yeah. And he deserved it. He's a great artist. And I used to take, every Sunday morning, I used to get bagels and lox, because he and his wife love bagels and lox. You get the best bagels in Manchester, and the best lox, from a shop called Titanic, named after somebody that survived the Titanic.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
That's very cool.
They cornered the smoked salmon market after the Mar. They know the canned. You know, they used to have tins of salmon. And these people had cornered the market and made a fortune.
That's amazing.
Anyhow,
That's such British humor.
It's the truth.
Yes.
It's actually the truth. But anyhow, so on the album I get credited, not as Harvey Lisberg, Harvey Bagels and Lox.
Oh, wow. That's so great.
Pissed me off. I mean, God forbid he should give me the correct credit, because I reckon I was... Anyhow, going on from Amarillo, which was 18 then, 23 years later, an English comedian called Peter Kay did it on the BBC Red Nose Day, which is a charity day where everybody else red noses, they raise millions of pounds for charity. And he did a video, because Peter Kay's mother liked Amarillo, and did this song. And in the song they had all these people, all these very famous artists in the video, because they were doing it for charity. Right. And that was a great thing. And it went to number 1 in 2004. It was number 1 for 9 weeks. Biggest record of the year. And that's where it should have been. The first time when I needed it. When Tony Christie...
when I needed it.
Tony Christie would have been the biggest thing in the world. He had the hit later, but it didn't mean as much, because he's already... he's like 20 years old. That's that.
Well, Harvey, thank you so much for sharing some of these great stories. Now, if you want more of these stories, all you have to do is pick up the book, I'm Into Something Good, My Life Managing 10cc, and Herman Sermons, and many others. And you really kind of delve into that time period, the British invasion, and how it changed culture both in the UK and here in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a wonderful time to be alive.
You've had a wonderful life.
Yeah, and those 10 years, say from 1963 to 73, probably musically, they will be the greatest years of all time in the pop music.
I don't think there's any question about that. You look back at that British invasion time frame, the incredible bands that burst through on that scene, but
Absolutely.
also the ones that kind of just hung along. There's still some tremendous music there. But my takeaway from today is just listening to you talk about music for a guy who was never in a band, really.
An accountant.
Yeah, for the guy who was the accountant and hired all the right people, you've got such an incredible ear for the songs that you knew were the right songs at the right time.
Yeah, it's a gift. It's just luck.
Well, I'm so glad you shared that with us today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
And
Always
for
good
those of
doing
us
things
who were
with you.
listening to the music, thank you. I mean, that was the music of my youth. It really was. Thank you for that.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Well,
Lovely.
you and I, our mutual friend Richard Herwig,
Yeah.
who introduced me to you, by
Yeah.
the way. He had read your book, and I was at Richard's house, and Richard said, "You ought to call Harvey and get him on your show." And I said, "I don't even know how to get in touch with Harvey." And Harvey was on Facebook, but we thought Harvey was still living in the UK. So I send him a Facebook message, and a few weeks later I get a note, and it's Harvey. He goes, "Oh no, I've been living here. We moved here during the pandemic. I'm here year round. I'd love to come in and do Eye on the Dead." I'm like, unbelievable. Like all you do is just kind of shoot this thing into the dark, and it's so much fun. And folks really need to get the book because it sheds a lot of light on a really interesting time frame. Several. You kind of go, from the 60s through the 70s, and it's a terrific book.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, once again, the book is called I'm Into Something Good, My Life Managing 10cc, Herman's Hermits, and many more. Harvey Lisberg, our guest. My thanks to our producer, Mr. John McMullen, who is the stalwart champion of the show. Silent, but he's the guy.
Yeah, that wouldn't happen without him.
No. And it wouldn't happen without you, Randy.
Oh, you're going to make me cry.
No, it would happen without you. But
Now I am
I'm
gonna cry.
kidding. I'm kidding. That's a joke.
We always hurt the ones we love.
I know. Don't be hurt. Don't be hurt. This is Big Conversations, a little bar, and we'll drop another episode real soon on your favorite podcast platform. And once again, our great thanks to the presenters of this podcast, the McCallum Theater. Great folks over there who are doing great work to keep arts thriving here in the Coachella Valley. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Big Conversations, Little Bar. Recorded on location at Skip Page's Little Bar in Palm Desert, California, the center of the Coachella Valley universe. And presented by the McCallum Theater. Online at McCallumTheater.org. This program is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System. All episodes are available from BigConversationsLittleBar.com and most major podcast portals, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify.